electrified LCVs, they just don't work. They don't do the jobs that I need them to do. They don't go far enough. I don't know where to charge them. The drivers hate them and they cost too much. Why should I bother? Welcome to the Take Charge of Change podcast series, where LEXperts cover everything you need to know about making your fleet fit for the future. In this episode, we'll be discussing the challenges business face as they transition to electric LCVs. So we wanted to host a panel session to really kind of dig into what our customers need to do and what they need to think about in terms of making the transition from where they are today into an electrified future or a net zero future. So I wanted to kick this off by being a little bit, I guess, controversial. Electrified LCVs, they just don't work. They don't do the jobs that I need them to do. They don't go far enough. I don't know where to charge them. The drivers hate them and they cost too much. Why should I bother? So I know, Chris, you've gone on a big program. So does that match your thoughts, or were those your thoughts when you started through the journey?
The one thing I'd say is there's a million products out there. They all have different ranges. They all have different, benefits. The one thing I would say was really surprising is drivers love them. Getting them in the vehicles is the hard part. Once they're actually in them and they're using them, I'm hard pressed to take them out of an electric because there's such a nice drive. I'm a data person. I'm a numbers guy. So at the end of this 2024, we did a full year's review of exactly what we're getting out of our telematics, real world use, by body types, by seasonality. So, in the colder months, hotter months, what were we averaging? So we averaged just over 2 miles per kilowatt. And they are the smallest 64 kilowatt batteries. So we were averaging under normal workload about 130 miles out of the small battery transits. And that's across a number of different body types of drop sides, panels, even box fans. And there wasn't a massive difference in actual efficiency, which was quite surprising. Because those box fans are just squares, So there is limitations to them. Telling the driver that you have to stop for 30 minutes during your busy day to charge and have a break is not the hardest sell in the world. It's pretty easy. The managers, little more so, because they have to get things out. But yeah, we haven't had too much of an issue with it. It's just about the use case of the vehicle, where you're putting them, what you're using them for, which we did a bit of research beforehand.
So I think you're obviously talking with the benefit of being quite a bit away through that journey. When you were first making that transition, and I'm assuming that you had concerns over range and those, how did you overcome those?
Yeah, I mean, our main focus before we even took the first one was to trial one, get one in our hands. You need to test it, but you also need to have a driver that is going to give it a chance. We try, coach them, educate them on how to do things. We found a real uptick once we developed a EV user guide.
Understanding where your business wants to be in terms of net zero crucial, would you say?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we are full steam ahead with ESG.
So obviously, it is a different type of vehicle. Are there any other changes you've had to make to how operationally you manage a day?
We have some fantastic drivers that do 3,000 miles plus a month in the e-transits. And they get fantastic miles per kilowatt. They are really champions of ours. I mean, we had to install our own infrastructure. So we have our own depot chargers, which we use a combination of standalone Rolex chargers, and we use 415 volt three-phase chargers with a cable that we call Juice Booster, which we get with our e-transits, which have been pivotal. We can leave it overnight, get in the morning, they're charged, everything's good. Yeah. We have public charging cards as well. So if they need to top up, it's easy. But again, the education piece on that is we'll charge from 10 to 80%.
So if I bring Simon in, if you don't mind, it isn't straightforward, is it? Electrifying your fleet and everything that goes along with it. Do you think it's a fleet problem, or is it more of a business problem?
To be honest, I think that's where most businesses go wrong. And so if you're focusing on vehicles, then you're immediately going to struggle. The people who need to be in the room are facilities, property, finance, HR, operations, etc. And you need to be looking at that as an entire group. Most fleet managers, unfortunately, are probably CEO -5 sort of in a hierarchy. And it's hard if you're those people to get support across all of those areas. To do that, the primary bit is demonstrate the benefit to the business, and money talks.
So being data-led in your decision-making, how important is that? And what are the data points that are really going to promote and support, convincing C-suite board members that this is something worthwhile doing?
We've just done a piece of work for a 850 vehicle fleet, which is blue light. So everyone says, the one thing you can't electrify definitely is blue light because of, emergency response. So what we did was we had the commercials for the vehicles, we had the full vehicle listing and then how they categorise the vehicles, and then a full telematics download, 12 months point-to-point data, so millions of data lines from a vehicle point of view. And then for all of the buildings, all of the locations, the capacities, and the current electricity usage. And then some engagement with operations teams and so on. But basically those data points. And then if you use the right algorithm to do the analysis, you can effectively establish exactly which vehicles you should transition when, what charging infrastructure you need where, and what speed it needs to be.
Yeah.
And just as an example for that organisation, they had modelled as being gracious, and they had assumed it was going to be about 4.5 to 15 million of capex to support that fleet. When you actually do all of the work, they need to spend 1.2 million.
Really?
And can save £625,000 a year on OPEX as well. So a 1.9 year payback. So if you get all of those data points and do the analysis up front, then you're going into your finance director saying, yeah, I do want some capital, but it's cash positive in under 5 years and it's 1.9 year payback on exit run rate. Suddenly, even in the public sector, and money becomes available when you've got those sorts of data points.
Yeah. What are the key risks of doing nothing, not getting on this journey right now?
So being less competitive than other organisations. If you're not doing that, then you're less competitive. There's going to be a point at which, and if you look at the history of EVs and transition, there's been really good support financially. Money's just being thrown at the problem, and slowly it reduces and reduces. As the stick gets bigger, the carrot gets smaller. And so actually your cost of transition goes up, and then it stops being a planned transition. It starts being a distressed transition because suddenly you can't buy the vehicles anymore. And if you're dealing with customers or consumers, they care about this stuff too. So you can also get fantastic PR for your business by being at the forefront of doing this kind of thing.
So we've touched on manufacturers. I think for this year, 16% of all vehicles sold in the LCV space need to be zero emitting. I think that goes up to 24% next year. And then it's up the year after, I think it's 34, up until we get to 2030, where it's 70% of all vehicles need to be zero emitting. So that's a big ask for the industry. So if I just ask you the question about Ford in particular, but what is it you're doing in particular to help and support customers get on that journey and make that transition?
The products are there. You get such a range of LCV vehicles, different pricing ranges, different capabilities. So, but also the other thing that we've talked about a lot is helping our customers transition. So Ford have developed a plethora of tools. We have our own Ford telematics as well. We have EV EV servicing, and we've got a lot of plans that are supporting the whole EV transition. So not just the product, buying the vehicle, but operating the vehicle and maintaining and keeping that vehicle in good health. I don't know if any of the audience have seen eSwitch. It's a Ford connected vehicle tool. So if you've got a Ford Transit or Ford Transit Custom, We can connect you. We can look at the usage of your ICE vehicle and know exactly how much energy you're using. So measuring the energy is the best way to understand exactly what you need. Once we've got the data, we can help you decide which of your fleet, and that's vehicle by vehicle, would be most suitable to switch first and the products that can support that switch. And if you don't have a Ford connected vehicle, can also help. We've got the range calculator, which is readily available on our website. You can look again, the same thing based on a Transit Custom or a Transit. Look at the range effects of driving styles, conditions.
Is there anything that you offer that can kind of support our customers get the most out of those vehicles through education?
So we have on our telematics, eco coaching. So you can see how the drivers are driving. You can look through and actually then coach your driver appropriately. We also have a comprehensive productivity guide. It's got really detailed understanding what are the effects of temperature, what are the effects of different payloads. What's the best thing to do, if you really need to conserve range. So there's lots of hints and tips in there. And so we also have that kind of consultancy support for our customers, so we can help understand their specific use case and advise, how best to preserve their asset for those vehicles.
Yeah. Is there anything coming down the line either from Ford or that you're aware of in the industry that's going to kind of, are we going to see that LCV that can do 300 miles in a day that's fully laden? Is that on the horizon or not?
Range is a really important metric. Our 4P Transit, which we're launching this year, our Enhanced Range Transit 2-ton, will have 250 miles WLTP. So that's significantly more than our 3P Transit. But our Custom, you can charge for 30 minutes, fast charge, and it gives you an extra 120 miles. That's quite a lot for a 30-minute break. So definitely there's technologies not just in the range, but also charging and infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. So Prime, obviously, E.ON, you specialise in infrastructure and charging solutions. Vehicle is a relatively small part of the problem, but infrastructure represents quite a large part of the problem. I think our customers find it very difficult to understand, what do they need to do? Not everyone is as fortunate to be able to put infrastructure into their depots or locations. So where would you recommend that a customer maybe start that journey to understand what they need?
Yeah, sure. I think it depends on the size of the organisation. If it's a large organisation, you'll probably have a head of sustainability, head of fleet, head of facilities. Probably want to start by obviously putting them in a room together, and they'll probably want to then speak to a specialist. So reach out to a specialist, and that's where we would come in. And once you have an idea of the route that you want to take, we'll then help from there. And what we would generally look at to start with is we'd get an understanding of what type of vehicles you have, what vehicles can and can't be electrified as well, and where can they be charged. Okay, so in terms of the where, you kind of have three places where you can charge your vehicle. So the first one, the main one, is probably the workplace, or where the fleets are kept overnight. You then have your public charging, so while you're on the road as well. And what we're also doing now is home charging as well. So it's a piece where we can install chargers for the business at the home premises, and we can actually take advantage of the very cheap rates you'd get at home as well. You may not need to put the initial investment into having chargers installed at the workplace. You could be okay for the time being with the public infrastructure and home charging. Yeah. And a home charger is very cheap to install. For example, for around about £999, you can get a home charger installed. Yeah. And people can charge their vans at home if they have the space.
And time again, it seems to come back to data, doesn't it? Data really underpinning all the decision makings. So I think Simon made a really good point around how, if you've got drivers, especially in the van space, that do take the vehicles home and do have to charge in a home setting, and are charging that vehicle off their own domestic energy tariff.
Yeah.
How do you help customers manage the whole reimbursement?
The reimbursement piece is massive, and you want to make that as easy as possible for your drivers. You don't want it to be a case of obviously them having to pay for the electricity themselves and then having to expense it. You just want to have different options available to everyone. So, what there is out there now is that you can have a charger installed at home, and you can actually read the information off that charger. So it's a smart charger, and you can get an understanding of what vehicle is plugged into that charger, whether it's a work vehicle or whether it's a personal vehicle, and then we can directly reimburse that to the driver.
Yeah.
One solution, which is, with E.ON, we're kind of like a one-stop shop for all your fleet electrification needs.
Yeah.
And it's putting all these pieces together: charging in public, charging at home, charging at the workplace, installing the infrastructure, the chargers, and just having it all on that one piece of software that you can then use for, your ESG reporting, your sustainability reporting.
So it's clearly about making it as easy as possible for our customers. Path of least resistance, whatever works and is the best.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So during the evenings, so it will be from most companies are like 12 to 6 or 12 to 7 during the evening. So when there's a cheaper rate of electricity, there's more availability in the grid. The utility suppliers will provide an EV tariff where your car will automatically, it can start charging. You can schedule it to start at 12 and then stop at 7, and then you'll get that cheaper rate, basically, effectively. You also have other tariffs as well from other suppliers where you can have charge anytime. And normally it will charge the vehicle, but it could stop and start it if there's a bit of a spike in the price. So effectively, you can charge in the daytime at that cheaper rate as well.
What's your view of the future in terms of leasing costs and how that's going to play out over the next period of time?
What I'm starting to see is ICE costs are starting to increase. The fines for vans at the moment are very, very punitive for all those vehicles that register that don't meet the ZEV mandate. What we have found is there is actually a really strong market for used BEV vans, especially in London and other big cities that are starting to put in low emitting zones. There's a really strong market out there for businesses that can't afford or don't want to commit to brand new vehicles because they are too expensive. And then, it's about going back to the OEMs like Ford and others to sort of have sensible conversations about pricing structures and try and influence at the front end when a new vehicle's launch. What we need to do is act a little bit more like an SME or a sort of a startup to think about things. How can we be agile and use different routes to market that we would never normally do? And we have to invest in that.
Abby, obviously, we're doing a lot from a sustainability perspective. So we've got some targets. So what are those targets? How are we doing? What are the initiatives that you're deeply involved in from a Lloyds Banking Group and a transport point of view to support our own sustainability journey?
One of our biggest targets externally was to fund £8 billion worth of BEV and FEV cars and vans by the end of 2024, which we did. We've also committed to a reduction of 50% in our financed emissions for cars and LCVs by 2030. On the cars side, I think we're quite confident. We're doing quite well. The LCV side is definitely a lot harder, and there's more work for us to do for sure on that one. But I guess that's why we're having these kind of sessions, is to try and help us get in that direction. But there are so many things that we're working on in the meantime. So we've got kind of the things that we can directly do to support with data. There are ongoing conversations with government, with industry bodies. We're trying to work across Lloyds Banking Group and kind of explore new connections as well. And I think if we continue to focus on all of those things, we'll be in a much better place than we have been.
We hope you found this episode useful. Look out for the other episodes in the series.